My name is Kelly, and I married Tom when I was young and filled with dreams. We had been high school sweethearts, and I truly believed we'd be happy forever. My father, a successful businessman who owned a furniture factory, gave us a beautiful house as a wedding gift. It felt like the perfect start to our future. 3 years into our marriage, our son Michael was born. As the years went by, I poured myself into being the perfect wife and mother. I kept our home spotless, cooked gourmet meals, and ensured Michael always had everything he needed. My life revolved around my family, but Tom's career as a sales manager wasn't progressing as he had hoped. One night, Tom came home frustrated, slamming his briefcase down on the kitchen table. "Damn it, Kelly, I can't take this anymore. I'm busting my ass at work for pennies." The anger in his voice startled me, and I flinched. "What do you want me to do about it?" I asked softly, trying to keep my voice calm. His eyes lit up with sudden hope. "Your father, he could give me a job at the factory, a senior position. Can't you talk to him?" I hesitated. My father had always been fair in business, and I wasn't sure I wanted to blur the lines between family and work. But the desperation in Tom's eyes was hard to ignore. "Okay," I whispered. "I'll talk to him." The next day, I visited my father at his office. My nerves felt tangled as I tried to find the right words. "Dad, I need to ask you something. It's about Tom. He's struggling at work, and I was wondering, would you consider giving him a position at the factory?" After a long pause, my father gave a small nod. "All right, Kelly, I'll give him a chance, but only if he earns it like everyone else." When I told Tom the news, he was ecstatic. He swept me off my feet and spun me around the kitchen. "You're amazing, Kelly. This is going to change everything for us." And for a while, it did. Tom's new job brought in more money, easing our financial stress. But as one problem was solved, a new one emerged: my relationship with Tom's mother, Helen. Helen was a force of nature, fiercely protective of her only son and openly critical of me. She dropped by unannounced, criticized my housekeeping, and demanded my constant attention. One afternoon, while I was preparing dinner, Helen burst through the front door. "Kelly, I need you to take me shopping, right now." I clenched my jaw. "Helen, I'm in the middle of cooking. Can it wait until tomorrow?" Her eyes narrowed. "Are you saying my needs aren't important, after everything I've done for this family?" Biting back a sharp retort, I forced a smile. "Of course not. Just let me finish up here." As I drove her to the mall, she complained nonstop about my driving, my cooking, and pretty much everything else. I couldn't help but wonder how my life had turned into this. I was an intelligent, capable woman, yet somehow I found myself catering to everyone else while my dreams faded into the background. One particularly exasperating afternoon, Helen barged into the house again without warning. "I'm hungry," she declared. "Make me something to eat." I bit my tongue and set aside the laundry I was folding. In the kitchen, Helen hovered behind me, criticizing my every move. "You're using too much oil," she snapped, "and cut those vegetables smaller. Don't you know how to cook properly?" When I finally placed the meal in front of her, relief washed over me until she packed up the food into containers and stood to leave. "I'll take this with me," she announced. "I have bridge club tonight, and this will do nicely for snacks." I stared at her, dumbfounded. "But Helen, that was supposed to be our dinner." She shrugged dismissively. "You can always make more. It's not like you have anything better to do with your time." The door slammed behind her, and I sank into a chair, feeling utterly defeated. I glanced at the clock, less than an hour to prepare another meal before Tom got home. When he arrived, loosening his tie, he took one look at me scrambling in the kitchen. "Why isn't dinner ready?" he asked, frowning. I explained what had happened with Helen, hoping for some understanding or support, but instead, Tom's expression darkened. "Mom was here, and you didn't make her feel welcome," he demanded. "Kelly, you know how important family is to me. You should have been more accommodating." "Accommodating," I echoed, disbelief bubbling to the surface. "Tom, she took our dinner. She treats me like a servant in my own home." He shook his head, clearly annoyed. "You're exaggerating. Mom just wants to feel loved and appreciated. Is that too much to ask?" We ate the hastily prepared meal in silence, the distance between us growing with every bite. The man sitting across from me, the one I had fallen in love with as a teenager, now felt like a stranger. One evening, Tom stormed through the front door, his face red with fury. "Your father?" he bellowed, slamming the door behind him. "He's a tyrant. He humiliates people and uses them like pawns in his little game." His words hung in the air like a storm cloud, and for the first time, I saw the cracks in the life I had tried so hard to build. I had given everything, my love, my time, my dreams. And now, all I had left was the realization that I was slowly losing myself in the process. And as I stood there, watching Tom unravel before my eyes, I couldn't help but wonder, was this really the life I had dreamed of? Or was it time to find my way back to the woman I used to be? I was caught off guard. My father had always been fair and kind in my experience. What happened? I asked cautiously. Tom's eyes flashed with fury. I stood up for an employee today. Your father was treating him unfairly, and I couldn't just stand by. And you know what your precious daddy did? He fired me, right on the spot. My mind spun. This didn't sound like my father at all. There must be some mistake, I said, trying to remain calm. Let me talk to Dad and hear his side. No, Tom roared, making me flinch. You will not speak to your father or your mother. As far as we're concerned, they no longer exist for us. Do you understand? Trembling, I nodded, too shocked and scared to argue. In the days that followed, Tom found another job and started earning well again. But something fundamental had changed between us. The love and warmth I once felt for him had been replaced by fear and resentment. As the years passed and our son, Michael, grew up, he often asked about his grandparents. But Tom would shut down any conversation about them. You have one grandmother, he would say firmly. My mother. That's all you need to know. When Michael prepared to leave for college, I felt both pride and sadness. My baby was growing up, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing the only ally I had in the house. The years that followed fell into a monotonous routine. With Michael gone, I catered to Tom's every whim and endured Helen's constant criticism. Without Michael as a buffer, their treatment of me grew even more oppressive. One afternoon, as I scrubbed the kitchen floor under Helen's watchful eye, the phone rang. I reached for it, but Helen snatched it away. I'll answer it, she snapped. You focus on getting that floor clean. I can still see spots. I gritted my teeth and continued scrubbing, but I couldn't help overhearing Helen's conversation. Yes, this is Kelly's residence. Who? Her father. Helen's voice dripped with disdain. I'm sorry, but Kelly isn't available to speak with you. Please don't call again. My head snapped up. Wait, I called out, but Helen had already hung up. That was your father, she said coldly. I told him not to contact you again. You should be thanking me for protecting this family from those toxic people. I felt a surge of anger. You had no right to do that. My voice shook with frustration. He's my father. I should have been allowed to speak to him. Helen's eyes narrowed. You ungrateful little. Before she could finish, Tom walked in. What's going on here? He demanded, taking in the scene. Helen immediately shifted into her usual manipulative tone. Oh, Tom, your wife is being so disrespectful to me, after everything I do for this family. Tom's face darkened as he turned to me. Is this true, Kelly? Are you disrespecting my mother? I opened my mouth to explain, but the words wouldn't come. I realized with a sinking heart that it didn't matter what I said. Tom would always take Helen's side. A year passed since that fateful phone call from my father. Life continued in its suffocating routine, with Tom and Helen's control over me growing tighter by the day. Then, one crisp autumn morning, everything changed. The phone rang while I was preparing breakfast. Tom was in the shower, and Helen hadn't arrived yet for her daily inspection. For once, I could answer without interference. Hello, I said tentatively. Kelly, is that you? The voice on the other end was familiar yet distant, my father's voice. Kelly, it's your mother. She's very ill. The doctors, they don't think she has much time left. She needs you. We both do. My heart raced. Just then, I heard the bathroom door open. Tom would be down any minute. I'll try, Dad. I promise I'll try, I whispered before quickly hanging up. When Tom entered the kitchen, I was fighting to compose myself. Who was that on the phone? He asked, his voice laced with suspicion. I took a deep breath. It was my father, Tom. My mother is very ill. She's dying, and I need to go see her. Tom's face hardened. Absolutely not. We've been through this, Kelly. Your parents don't exist for us anymore. Something inside me snapped. For the first time in years, I stood up to him. I'm going, Tom. With or without your permission. She's my mother, and I'm not letting her die without saying goodbye. Tom's jaw clenched. Fine. One day. That's all you get. Then you come back home where you belong. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. One day was better than nothing. With shaking hands, I called my son Michael and explained the situation. To my surprise and relief, he immediately offered to come with me. The next morning, Michael and I set off for my childhood home. When we arrived, my father met us at the door. He looked older than I remembered, grief carving deep lines into his face. Without a word, he pulled me into a tight embrace. He led us to my mother's room. She lay in bed, pale and frail, but her eyes lit up when she saw me. "Kelly," she whispered, reaching out with a trembling hand. "My baby girl." I rushed to her side, clasping her hand in mine. "Mom, I'm here. I'm so sorry. Can you ever forgive me?" She smiled weakly. "There's nothing to forgive, sweetheart. I'm just glad you're here now." We spent the day together, sharing memories and making up for lost time. As the sun began to set, her breathing became labored. She squeezed my hand and looked into my eyes. "Kelly," she said softly, "promise me you'll live your life, really live it. Don't let anyone cage your spirit again." Tears streamed down my face as I nodded. "I promise, Mom. I promise." She smiled one last time, then closed her eyes. Her hand went limp in mine. She was gone. Suddenly, my phone began to ring incessantly. I didn't need to look to know it was Tom. I answered, stepping into the hallway for privacy. "Where the hell are you, Kelly?" Tom's voice cut through the line, sharp with anger. "You were supposed to be back hours ago." "Tom, I can't leave yet," I stammered, my voice thick with emotion. "My mother just passed away. I need to stay for the funeral." "Absolutely not," he roared. "I told you one day, and that's all you get. If you're not back by tomorrow, don't bother coming back at all." His words hung in the air, both a threat and a promise. For a moment, I was tempted to give in, to rush back to the life I knew. But then I remembered my mother's last words, urging me to live fully. "Fine," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm staying." I ended the call before he could respond, my heart pounding. I had defied Tom for the first time in our marriage, and it was both terrifying and exhilarating. The next few days passed in a blur of grief and preparations. On the day of the funeral, as we stood solemnly around my mother's grave, my phone rang again. Tom's number flashed on the screen. Without thinking, I pressed the speaker button, intending to silence it quickly. Tom's loud, angry voice burst forth for everyone to hear. "Kelly, this is your last chance. If you don't come home right now, I swear I'll come and drag you back myself, you ungrateful filth." After everything, I didn't let him finish. I hung up, and for the first time in a long while, I felt free. I quickly ended the call, my face burning with a mix of shame and anger. The people around us looked shocked, and Michael's face was a mask of fury. My father, however, seemed more concerned than anything else. As soon as the service ended, he pulled me aside. "Kelly," he said gently, "we need to talk." We walked to a quiet corner of the cemetery, and my father took a deep breath. "Sweetheart, there's something you need to know about Tom, something I should have told you years ago." I listened in stunned silence as my father revealed the truth. Tom hadn't left the company all those years ago because he stood up for an employee, as he had told me. Instead, my father had caught him stealing money, manipulating prices, and pocketing the difference from clients. "I fired him to protect the company and our clients," my father explained. "I didn't tell you because I thought you loved him, and I didn't want to come between you. But hearing how he talks to you and seeing what your life has become, I can't stay silent anymore." It felt like the ground had opened beneath my feet. All these years I had believed Tom's lies. I had let him isolate me from my family and endure both his and Helen's emotional abuse. And all of it had been based on a lie. "There's more," my father continued, his voice grave. "I recently heard from a friend that Tom's company is under investigation. There are discrepancies. Kelly, I think he might be up to his old tricks again." As the full impact of his words hit me, I felt a strange mix of despair and liberation. The life I had known was crumbling around me, but from its ashes I saw a chance for a new beginning. The day after the funeral, my father, Michael, and I returned to my house. To our surprise, the place was bustling with activity. Helen's friends were milling about, and the smell of food wafted from the open windows. We walked in to find a full-blown party in progress. Helen, holding a glass of wine, spotted us first. Her eyes narrowed as she saw my father and Michael. "Well, look who finally decided to grace us with her presence," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You're late, Kelly. My birthday celebration started hours ago." I was momentarily stunned. In all the turmoil of the past few days, I had completely forgotten about Helen's birthday. Before I could respond, she thrust a dirty rag into my hands. "Don't just stand there," she snapped. "Start cleaning up." These tables won't wipe themselves." My father, who had been quietly observing, suddenly erupted. "How dare you speak to my daughter that way?" he thundered, causing the room to fall silent. "She's not a dog to follow your commands. She's a grown woman who deserves respect." Helen laughed derisively. "Respect? She gave up any right to respect when she married my son. Her family is Tom and me now. You're nothing to her anymore." I watched in disbelief as my father and Helen argued, their voices rising. The party guests looked uncomfortable, unsure whether to leave or stay. Suddenly, Tom burst into the room. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded, his eyes locking onto me. "Kelly, why aren't you serving the guests? And what are they doing here?" He gestured angrily toward my father and Michael. Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration and anger came pouring out. "No, Tom," I said, my voice steady and clear. "I'm not serving anyone. I'm not cleaning up, and I'm not staying silent anymore." The room had gone deathly quiet. Even Helen seemed at a loss for words. "I know the truth, Tom," I continued, pulling out the divorce papers I had hastily prepared. "I know why you really left my father's company, and I'm done. I want a divorce." For a moment, Tom looked like he might lunge at me, but then, perhaps realizing he was outnumbered, he deflated. "Fine," he snarled. "Take your divorce, but don't think you'll get a penny from me." I couldn't help but laugh. "This house is mine, Tom. My father gave it to us as a wedding gift, remember? You're the one who needs to leave." Tom and Helen left shortly after, shooting venomous glares our way. As the door closed behind them, I sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. Michael, who had been quietly observing everything, finally spoke up. "Mom, why didn't you tell me things were so bad?" "I'm sorry, Michael," I said softly. "I thought I was protecting you," I said, my voice heavy with regret. "But now I realize I was teaching you all the wrong lessons about love and respect." In the weeks that followed, my life changed dramatically. The divorce proceedings began, and I threw myself into rebuilding from the ground up. My father, true to his word, stood by me every step of the way. One afternoon, as we sat together in his study discussing my future, he broached a topic I hadn't expected. "Kelly," he began, his voice gentle but serious, "I'm not getting any younger, and the factory needs new blood. How would you feel about working with me?" I blinked in surprise. "Me? But Dad, I don't know the first thing about running a business." He chuckled warmly. "Neither did I when I started. You're smart, Kelly. You'll learn, and it's about time you had a chance to spread your wings." Over the next few months, I immersed myself in the business. My father was a patient and encouraging teacher, guiding me through the complexities of managing the furniture factory. To my surprise, I discovered a passion for design and innovation that had been buried beneath years of survival and compromise. Meanwhile, the divorce dragged on. Tom fought me at every turn, contesting the house and even trying to manipulate Michael against me. But in the end, justice prevailed. I was awarded both the house and substantial financial compensation for the years of emotional abuse. Tom, facing charges for fraud, spiraled into debt and lost his ability to hold senior positions. As for Helen, her influence withered, and she faded into obscurity, moving in with distant relatives. 3 years passed in what felt like the blink of an eye. Life had taken on a beautiful rhythm, but one Sunday morning, my father called me into his office. His expression was solemn as he gestured for me to sit down. "Kelly," he began softly, his voice laden with emotion, "I'm not well. The doctors, they don't think I have much time." The world tilted beneath me. "Dad, no," I whispered, gripping his hand. He squeezed my fingers gently, his gaze steady and full of love. "It's okay, sweetheart. I've had a good life, and I can leave knowing that you're strong, free, and happy. You'll be okay." Tears streamed down my face, and he continued, "I'm leaving everything to you, the business, the house. You've more than proven yourself, Kelly. I know you'll take care of it all." In the weeks that followed, we spent as much time together as possible. His body grew weaker, but his spirit remained unbreakable. He passed away peacefully in his sleep, leaving behind a legacy I was now responsible for carrying forward. News of my father's passing and my inheritance spread quickly through town. As I adjusted to my new reality, an unexpected visitor arrived at my doorstep. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when I heard the doorbell ring. I opened the door and froze. Tom stood there, holding a bouquet of flowers, his expression uncharacteristically soft. "Kelly," he said, his voice quieter than I'd heard in years. "I'm really sorry about your father. May I come in?" Warily, I stepped aside to let him in. We stood in the foyer, an awkward silence thick between us, until he finally spoke. "I've been thinking a lot about us," he began. "I know I made terrible mistakes, but I've changed. My mom, she passed away last month. She was the one who always got between us. Now, there's nothing stopping us from being happy again." Before I could respond, I heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. The front door opened, and a tall, distinguished man stepped inside. "Kelly, darling, I'm home," he called. Then he stopped short, noticing Tom. Tom's eyes narrowed as he looked between us, his confusion giving way to anger. "Who the hell is this?" he demanded. The man stepped forward, extending his hand. "I'm David, Kelly's husband. And you are?" Tom ignored the outstretched hand, his face twisting with rage. "Husband? You remarried." His voice grew louder. "You traitor." David's expression hardened as he stepped protectively between us. "I suggest you leave now," he said, his tone calm but dangerous. "And never speak to my wife that way again." Tom lunged forward, but David moved faster. He caught Tom by the arm and firmly escorted him to the door. "This is your only warning," David said, his voice low. "Stay away from Kelly. If you ever come near her or insult her again, you'll regret it." David shut the door with a decisive click as the sound of screeching tires faded down the street. Then he turned to me, his expression softening with concern. "Are you okay, love?" I nodded and stepped into his embrace, resting my head against his chest. "I'm fine. I'm just glad you're home." I looked up at him, a smile tugging at my lips. "And I'm glad you waited for me after all these years." David chuckled, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "I've loved you since high school, Kelly. I would have waited forever if I had to." We stood there in each other's arms, marveling at how life had come full circle. David and I had been high school sweethearts before Tom entered the picture. After my divorce, we reconnected, and our old feelings blossomed into something even deeper. 6 months ago, we had married in a quiet ceremony, starting a new chapter together. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Michael. "Mom, great news. Jessica's pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother." In the months that followed, life settled into a beautiful rhythm. Michael and Jessica moved back to the city, eager to be close to family as they prepared for their baby's arrival. They even joined us at the factory, bringing fresh ideas and energy to the business. Together, we built a future rooted in love, family, and second chances, a future I never imagined would be possible.